Well, a very good evening once again, and welcome to the Monday Review Show. This is where we discuss all things referees and refereeing, decisions made and not made, yellow and red cards given or not given, and penalty kicks, etc. All to do about referees and refereeing. And it's been quite a weekend, really has been really a very, very bad weekend for officiating at the highest level. And of course, I'm talking about the Premier League. Now, we do go out on Facebook, we go out on YouTube. And if you'd like to ask any questions or have something clarified, please do so. Send in your questions and send in your comments, even on something that you'd like to talk about. I'm delighted to be joined once again by my very good friend by now, former Premier League referee, former FIFA referee, former head of the PGMOL, and the man responsible for introducing goal line technology, Keith Hackett, all the way from England. Good evening, Keith, and thanks for joining me.
Delighted to join you. There is no doubt, Errol, that this weekend...
I have to say that reception...
Yeah. There is no doubt that this weekend
reception
has
is
been a
quite
poor
bad
one for referees. And I'd like to dwell on that because what we had Fulham score a goal in the Premier League. The VAR, for some unknown reason, Michael Salisbury decided to come in, and the referee, Rob Jones, went to the monitor. What we could see was the Fulham player, spinning in the air and having a shot on goal, and the ball going into the back of the net. What the player did was, as he was spinning around, his foot came down onto the ground, obviously, but landed on a player who was challenging him for the ball, and it landed on top of his foot. It wasn't careless. It wasn't a foul. And to describe it as careless was, the backup that the PGMOL again statement said this is why the goal had been disallowed for a careless challenge. That in itself didn't make sense because the player who is deemed to have fouled was actually having a shot on goal. He wasn't making a challenge. So the outcome was that a lot of debate, a lot of discussion. Eventually, Salisbury, who was on that game, was due to be the VAR on the big game, Liverpool-Arsenal. The PGMOL announced that first of all, that it was an error, and that Salisbury, the VAR, would not be on the Liverpool-Arsenal game. We go from bad to worse, because what does that achieve? Accountability, I believe in. But at this moment in time, and I went out on social media frustrated because I think that we're going away from what is required. First of all, when we look at referees and referee training, they have to be fit, they have to be mobile. And therefore, you have a fitness guru, and he does that. You have a sports psychologist, comes in and helps tension and various other things. We have that. What I then had was when I was boss of the PGMOL, I had assessors. They were retired in all cases and former top referees or top assistant referees, but they were good at their job. And they went through evaluation. They went through serious training. And I had in Ron Groves a former top-level referee in charge of assessors. And therefore the training, the evaluation of their reports, and delivery was right on the nail, and we kept monitoring it every weekend. We looked at those assessments before they went out to the referee. The next thing is that we had coaches, and I put, say, 3 or 4 referees with each coach, and therefore they were a backup. By that I mean their discussion, their debate was confidential. It wasn't in the public domain. And as the boss of the PGMOL, I didn't know what they were discussing with those individual referees, because they needed to have and be able to consult in private either health issues or issues of performance. But what we would do is we would monitor the trends. We'd understand the trends. And the likes of, top referees like Paul Durkin, Tom Bune, who was long in the game. We had, as I've mentioned before, we had others like Paul Durkin and Roger Dilks and Trevor Simpson. So we had quality coaches. Then, to put balance and have a view from the customer's perspective, this is no different to a marketing arrangement. We asked the Premier League to form a panel of observers who were former managers, former players, the likes of Kenny Hibbert, John Duncan, the late John Duncan, who'd managed Chesterfield and played for Nottingham Forest and was an international player, Dennis Smith, who played for Stoke City. So a wide range of personalities and top-class managers. And they would assess the performance as well. So going into the dressing room after the game and before the game would be the assessor and the match delegate. So there was a full picture. And then, of course, I had Prozo. Now, what we've got now is, I think we've got, first of all, very poor quality coaches. Coaches who have not done it at the top level. They're not being FIFA referees. They've not been top Premier League referees. That's the first point. The second point is, one of the things to get consistency is that you have a one-to-one with the referee, and then you bring those referees together every week. They went into a group session. I led that session where we would look at incidents like the one on Saturday or Sunday, and we would review it as a group. We would ask the referee and the VAR, we didn't have VARs then, but we'd ask the assistant referees, talk us through that particular decision. How did you come to that decision? And then as a group, we would have an open discussion. And it was at times pretty hairy, groups splitting with each other. But what we were discussing, the avoidance of errors in the future, and we were using learning situations within the group, and we had a full picture. And, sometimes we might have a sports psychologist involved in that discussion. And so that no longer, as I understand it, takes place. So I don't know where we're at. Where I do know we're at is that the standards of English refereeing are not where it used to be. It's nowhere near where it used to be. And this is in a weekend where we have seen some competent performances. I want to talk about the Liverpool-Arsenal game, because there is Chris Kavanagh, and I'm thinking, I watched his performance, and I'm going, is he going to run? Is he going to get within 30 yards of play? Is he going to do any dynamic sprinting? Is he going to do any cross-field sprinting to get in proximity to play? One, to prevent. A shout can do that. One, to apply advantage. Again, signal and verbal is sometimes beneficial. and a word with the offender if you're in close proximity. He coasts, and that's allegedly a top performance. Gets worse, you know. Inconsistency. Anthony Taylor. I think that was.
Are they becoming? Do you think that? Sorry. Yeah, sorry, Keith. There's a bit of a delay, and apologies if I'm cutting across you.
No.
The newer guys, the likes of Sam Barrett, and one or two others, they just don't seem to be. They just don't seem to be up to scratch, and I'm wondering, are they just scared to make decisions? What did they do before VAR? And are they using VAR as a crutch to lean on to get them out of having to make a decision that needs to be made? I mean, that's what they're there for. And it's important to point out, I think, that VAR, VAR, Video Assistant Referee, emphasis on the middle word, assistant. And that's what it is. It's an assistance to the referee to help him arrive at a decision. But at the end of the day, as you and I well know, and many referees will well know, that the referee's decision is final. And I'm paraphrasing now. He makes the final decision, regardless of what VAR says, regardless of what the assistant with the flag says, or the fourth official. He makes the final decision. But Keith, they just don't seem to have the guts to make that decision and stand by it. Are they scared of the forensic examination that goes on by pundits in the studio? Perhaps?
Well, I think that, you know, well, I'm talking to a top-class referee here. You were at the top level. You and I, when we walked out on the field of play, we weren't arrogant. We were confident. We knew that we were the decision maker. We, if we like, were the managing director of the business, that game of football that we had to manage. And it's no matter what your assistant referees do, if they're not performing well, then they impact on your performance. And I've no doubt you and I at times have had, at half time, have had to have a quiet word with one of the assistants or both to say, look, guys, concentration, get up to speed. Either your flag's too quick, it's too slow, I've monitored and you're not up with play or whatever. Or you're too loud, you're too, you know, whatever that is, there's honest dialogue, because at the end of the day, it's on the referee's head to deliver. Now, there is no doubt that the VAR is impacting negatively on referees. Not all of them. I think there are some referees who almost switch it off. And you know, at times, I think if I was operating with all these people talking into my ear, I'd take it out my ear and say, I'm getting on with the game. Because I generally think that what Howard Webb says, Howard Webb is not delivering. Because he's the guy responsible. Now, he said, didn't he? He said very clearly, I'm setting a high bar. He said that this year we're going to focus on grappling. He said that captains only are going to apply. Right. So let us look at the bar. Salisbury's bar was so low, nobody could get underneath it. It wasn't high. It was so low. Now, they're losing their skill sets when they sit in that chair at Stockley Park. There's a fear factor that comes in. And you know, I saw it announced in social media, they've now got yet another guy that's going to come in and he's going to resolve all these issues. Kevin Blom from the Netherlands. Former referee, he's now coming in. There's Hugh Dallas within the organization somewhere. So, we're supposed to be the best in the world. And I think...
Keith, sorry to cut across you there, but is that not, by bringing in this guy from the Netherlands, is that not an admission that they just can't hack it? Excuse the pun, Keith, no disrespect.
Yeah, I mean,
is it just an admission that they are not capable of doing the job? The best league in the world, and they can't do the job.
Well, I think I go back to that Salisbury decision that was so wrong. You have to say, why did he make that decision? And that has to be that has to be basic law. Basic law. Common sense. A lack of confidence. Look, 2 years ago, you mentioned Sam Borrett. I think Sam Borrett potentially is an outstanding referee. I saw him have some really good games. And then all of a sudden, he's got the monkey on his back. Now, we don't see Anthony Taylor in the VAR room because I reckon Taylor has said, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to be a VAR. And I think that...
Interesting point. I never thought of that. No.
I think that from my point of view, I mean, I've said it from day one, and that is they need a specialist panel of VAR operators. They need to be trained. They need to be assessed in terms of delivery of performance. They need to be advised in terms of the terminology and the words that they speak to the referee. And I want referees to be encouraged to go to that monitor and say, go to hell. I'm sticking with what I've got. I'm happy with the decision.
That's somebody with guts.
Yeah. So I think this is what is required. But I think Howard Webb's on a knife edge now. I mean, I genuinely believe the opening 3 weeks of this season, they're thankful that there's an international break because there's no way that these 3 weeks have been good for refereeing. And that's, I watched Gerard Gillett, the Australian referee, 2 games, delivered 2 performances without a problem. So why wasn't he refereeing this weekend? And I just think that you need to have week in, week out your best team on the park. And you can't be mates, when you're being at the head. I'm sure the manager, Alex Ferguson, might have said it at times, the job of running Manchester United when he was boss might have been lonely on occasions because he's got to make some tough calls. He's got to make tough decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. In any job, Keith, in any corporation, it's lonely at the top. They say, lonely is the head that wears the crown. And it's so true. You have to make decisions, and you have to make hard decisions, and you shouldn't have friends, and you shouldn't get too close.
Well, I just think that I think somebody's not at the coalface doing the job that needs to be done, and he's got an international break.
Yeah,
he's got some referees that might well be refereeing in Europe, but the rest of them, I'd be saying, don't bother going home because for the next 14 days or 10 days, you're in. You're in at St. George's and we're going to sort this mess out. But I don't think there's an admittance that they've got a problem.
Yeah.
I don't think they've got, I think they just gloss it off. I mean, fans are totally unhappy. I know fans that are always going to be unhappy because they they view their own club and their own decisions. But, there's people in the game that have been long in the game, in the media, saying what is happening. Yeah, let me take an example. With Taylor, in the Sunderland game, it was refreshing because he gave a penalty kick for a holding offence. I think I sent you 2 photographs over the weekend. The first photograph is very clear. It's a holding offence for which a penalty kick is awarded. The opposition do exactly the same, if not worse, no penalty kick. And I'm going, why? Why? You've got to have seen it. And then moving on to captains only. Why waste the time talking about it? Because look, I'm sure that involving captains is about helping the management process, and I'm sure within the remit, it doesn't stop a player from talking to the referee. But there is a point at which the referee is engaging with the players and not calling the captain across and saying, look, they've done it once, I'll talk to you, and if you don't sort it, I'll talk to none of you. You sort it. And I don't think they're using the captains in the way it's supposed to be.
Absolutely.
So I think it's
and the pulling and dragging and wrestling in the penalty area.
Well, I think that it's still taking place. We look at it. I think they can resolve the issue. They've been given the tools to resolve the issue in law. They don't. They've been given the tools on captains only. They don't. The 8 minutes.
Yeah.
I've seen 1 or 2 goalkeepers going above that and nothing done already. 3rd week of the season. And I just look and I think.
And also, Keith, the 1 meter for free kicks. If there's more than 3 players on the wall, the other's supposed to stay a meter away. That's not happening either.
Can I just clarify a point, because it was raised with someone on my social media? It does not matter the direction of the ball. When you're setting up the free kick and just before the point of the ball being delivered, that's when you require the meter between the wall, 3 or more, and the attacking team. And that's where,
good point. Very good point.
And therefore, that's the point at which you watch, not once the ball is kicked. And I just think that there's some confusion around that, because I noticed in the Liverpool-Arsenal game, at the point the ball was about to be kicked, the players were closer together than a meter. And therefore, at that point, the free kick should be stopped. And the referee reorganised it. So somebody said to me that it doesn't matter about the meter because the ball went over the wall, so it doesn't count, does it? It does count. The ball is not the dominant feature here. It has nothing to do with the law. It's the actual meter between the 3 players in the wall or more and the attacking team. So I hope that message.
That's good to clarify that. Yeah, that's right. It's good to clarify that. The reception, I can see you clearly, Keith, but it keeps clogging in, clogging out, and clogging in and clogging out. And apologies to the people out there watching. We still have 5 minutes of our show left to go. And thanks again, Keith, for taking the time to to join me on the show. And of course, we will do the same again next Monday. But because it's cutting in and cutting out, it might be not good viewing for some people. So if you don't mind, we'll put it short there, and we'll do it all again, hopefully with better reception next week. So until then, thanks very much, Keith. Thank you out there for watching, and keep your comments coming in, and I will get around to them. Until next Monday, 8 o'clock with Keith and I. Bye-bye.
Bye.